The first disappearance hardly made the local news. A 17-year-old girl named Claire Whitmore vanished on her way home from a late-night shift at the diner in Coldwater, a small industrial town clinging to survival on the edge of the state highway. Her mother reported her missing before sunrise, but the police treated it like a runaway case. Kids disappeared sometimes. They always came back, or so the officers said. But Claire didn't. By the end of the week, her bicycle was found abandoned near the riverbank, its tires half buried in mud. No footprints, no signs of struggle, just the bike, as if she had stopped riding, stepped into the night, and evaporated. A month later, another teenager disappeared, then a third. Coldwater had always been the kind of place where everyone knew everyone. A single missing kid shook the whole community. 3 sent ripples of fear across the county. Parents no longer let their children walk alone. Neighbors triple-locked their doors. The diner where Claire had worked grew silent, its regulars whispering over coffee about the curse that seemed to be gripping the town. Detective Mark Hanlon was assigned to the case. Hanlon was a man in his late 40s with a reputation for being relentless, sometimes to the point of obsession. His career was littered with solved cases but also with enemies, both on the streets and inside the department. He'd seen drug wars, arsons, even organized crime. But missing kids were different. They got under his skin. From the beginning, something felt off. The official line from the sheriff's office was that the kids had run away, maybe hitchhiked out of town. But Hanlon noticed the details. The abandoned bike, the timing of the disappearances, the way each kid had vanished in the space of an ordinary evening. There were no witnesses, no surveillance cameras, no evidence, just silence. By winter, the town was breaking apart. Reporters arrived, TV crews parked their vans on Main Street, and suddenly Coldwater's name was in every headline. The Vanishing Point, the papers called it. That's when Emily Rivers showed up. Emily wasn't a cop. She wasn't even from Coldwater. She was a 32-year-old investigative journalist from Chicago, working freelance after being fired from her newspaper job for pushing too hard on a corruption piece. She smelled a story in Coldwater. Not just about missing kids, but about the cracks in small-town America, the way communities rotted from the inside when the powerful were left unchecked. The first time she met Hanlon, he didn't want anything to do with her. He sat at the bar of the Rusty Nail Tavern, nursing a glass of whiskey, his coat draped over the chair like armor. "You're wasting your time," he said without looking at her. "Maybe," Emily replied, sliding onto the stool beside him. "Or maybe you're sitting on something you can't talk about." Hanlon's jaw tightened. She could see it, the way he hated the attention, but hated the silence even more. 2 weeks later, another body turned up. It wasn't one of the missing kids. It was a man, local contractor, mid-40s, washed up near the river with his throat cut. The sheriff's office called it a robbery gone wrong. Hanlon didn't buy it. Neither did Emily. Because carved into the man's forearm was a symbol, a triangle with a circle in the middle. Emily had seen it before. Years ago, covering protests in Chicago, she had stumbled onto whispers of an old network, a group of men who operated in shadows, pulling strings in politics, business, and law enforcement. They called themselves the Circle. Now, staring at the photo of the dead contractor, Emily felt her pulse quicken. The symbol matched. If she was right, the missing kids weren't just random disappearances. They were part of something bigger, something systematic, and Coldwater was the perfect place to hide it. Detective Hanlon sat at his cluttered desk long after the rest of the station had emptied out. The only light came from a desk lamp that cast his shadow across stacks of reports. Photographs of the missing kids were pinned to the corkboard above him. Claire Whitmore, Jason Miller, Hannah Dorsey. Their eyes followed him, silently demanding answers. He had interviewed their families, retraced their last steps, even checked bus stations and highway motels. Nothing. It was as if the earth had swallowed them whole. But now there was a body, and a symbol, and symbols didn't just appear out of nowhere. Meanwhile, Emily Rivers set up camp in the Coldwater Motel, a dim, wood-paneled relic from the 1970s that smelled of mildew and cigarette smoke. She had taped a map of the town across her wall and marked each disappearance with a red pin. She noticed something that hadn't shown up in the police reports. Each child had last been seen within walking distance of the river. When she brought the theory to Hanlon, he dismissed it at first. "The river cuts through half the county," he said. "Of course it looks like a pattern." But Emily pressed. "It's not random. The river isn't just geography. It's a route. A perfect route for someone who knows how to use it." Hanlon didn't like admitting it, but she was right. The river connected Coldwater to miles of abandoned industrial sites, forgotten warehouses, and old shipping docks no one used anymore. Places where no one would look twice at a stranger hauling someone into the dark. The deeper they dug, the uglier the picture became. The contractor with the slit throat, his name was Paul Hensley, had been working on a development project funded by a local real estate company called Harborview Investments. On paper, it looked legitimate. New condos, office space, revitalization for a dying town. But Hensley's bank records showed unexplained cash deposits, tens of thousands at a time, routed through shell companies. When Emily tried to interview Harborview's CEO, a man named Richard Gable, she was shut down instantly. Gable was smooth, polished, the kind of man who wore expensive suits to small-town press conferences. He smiled for the cameras, promised jobs, promised hope. But behind closed doors, his eyes were flat, predatory. "You should be careful poking around in things you don't understand," Gable said when Emily pressed about Hensley's death. "Funny?" she shot back. "That's exactly what someone guilty would say." For a moment his mask slipped. Just a flicker. But Emily saw it. A few nights later, Emily's motel room door was left ajar when she returned. Nothing was stolen, but her notes had been scattered. Her laptop left open on a blank screen. A message had been typed onto the notepad app. "Stop digging or you'll end up like them." She froze, the weight of the threat settling into her chest. Whoever they were, she didn't need a second guess. Hanlon reacted differently when she told him. He didn't look surprised. Instead, he poured himself another coffee and leaned back in his chair. "Means we're close," he said. "Close to what?" "To something worth killing for." As the days turned into weeks, whispers spread through Coldwater. Parents talked about strange vans parked near schools. Teenagers told stories of faceless men watching from the woods. But no one had proof. Fear became the town's new currency. Then came the break in the case. A fisherman found a backpack tangled in the reeds downstream. Inside were Claire Whitmore's notebooks, her wallet, and a small carved wooden bird with one wing broken. Hanlon recognized it immediately. He'd seen the same carving before in Hensley's workshop. The bird wasn't just a trinket. It was a marker, a signature. And suddenly, the contractor's death didn't look like an outlier anymore. It looked like a warning shot from someone higher up. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She sat by her window, staring out at the neon flicker of the motel sign, listening to the hum of the highway. Her recorder was running, capturing her thoughts. If this is connected to Harborview, if kids are disappearing to feed something bigger, then this isn't just a local story. It's systemic. It's the kind of machine that chews people up and leaves nothing behind. But if I'm right, then every hour we waste could mean another kid is gone. She paused, her voice trembling. And I think Hanlon knows more than he's saying. The next morning, Hanlon didn't show up to their meeting. Emily waited at the Rusty Nail for an hour before driving to the station. His desk was empty. His car was gone. By afternoon, the sheriff announced that Hanlon had taken personal leave. Emily didn't buy it. Because pinned to her motel door that evening was another note, handwritten this time in shaky ink. "Trust no one. Not even me." Emily couldn't shake the note from her mind. "Trust no one. Not even me." The words gnawed at her, repeating over and over as she replayed every conversation with Detective Hanlon. His late-night calls, his evasive answers, the way he always seemed to be one step ahead. Had he been guiding her or misleading her? She decided not to wait for him anymore. That night, she drove to Hensley's abandoned workshop, the place where the wooden carvings had first appeared. It was taped off, police investigation signs nailed to the door. She slipped inside through a broken side window, flashlight trembling in her grip. Dust coated everything. The smell of sawdust still lingered, mixed with something sourer, older. On a workbench, she found a box filled with half-finished carvings. Birds, wolves, even crude human figures. Each had a symbol etched somewhere. A triangle intersected by a circle. Emily recognized it. She'd seen it before. Flipping back through her notes, she realized the same symbol had been spray-painted on an old warehouse by the river. She hadn't thought much of it then, just graffiti. Now it looked deliberate. A creak echoed through the workshop. Emily killed her flashlight and froze. For a long moment, silence. Then the faint sound of footsteps, moving slow, deliberate. "Emily," a voice whispered from the shadows. "You shouldn't be here." It was Hanlon. Only, something in his tone was different. Colder. The next morning, Emily woke in her motel bed with no memory of leaving the workshop. Her notes were gone. Her phone was gone. On the nightstand lay only one item. A freshly carved wooden bird, wings outstretched, triangle circle symbol cut into its chest. She wanted to run, to pack up and leave Coldwater behind. But fear and curiosity battled inside her, and curiosity won. If Hanlon was part of this, then she needed proof. She dug deeper into Harborview's shell companies, tracing property records, tax filings, donations. Pattern emerged. Dozens of community centers and rehab facilities were listed under subsidiaries. On the surface, harmless. But each facility was within a mile of the river. And then she found something worse. A charity called the Circle Foundation, with Hanlon listed as a community advisor. The Circle. Her chest tightened. It wasn't just a symbol. It was an organization. Emily returned to the river that evening, parking near the abandoned shipping docks. Fog rolled across the water, the air thick with rot and rust. She followed a narrow path until she reached the warehouse with the graffiti. The doors hung half open. Inside, lanterns glowed in a circle. Hooded figures stood around a wooden table, chanting low and steady. On the table lay objects Emily couldn't fully see, but she recognized a child's backpack among them. Her throat closed. The chant rose, echoing through the cavernous space. She pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding, recorder in hand. One figure lowered his hood. Detective Hanlon. Emily gasped before she could stop herself. Head snapped toward the shadows. Hanlon's eyes locked with hers across the flickering light. For a long moment, neither moved. Then he spoke, calm, almost gentle. "You've come too far, Emily. You can't expose this. Not now. Not ever." Emily stumbled backward, knocking over a rusted pipe. The clang echoed through the warehouse like a gunshot. The hooded figures advanced slowly, their steps synchronized, deliberate. She bolted for the door, but the fog outside was thicker now, swallowing the dockyard in pale white. The sound of footsteps followed her, steady, measured. She didn't dare look back. By some miracle, she found her car. Her hands shook as she turned the key, headlights slicing through the mist. For a second, she thought she saw Hanlon standing in the beam, face unreadable, before he vanished into the haze. Emily drove until the fog thinned and the first pale streaks of dawn painted the sky. Only then did she pull over and break down, clutching the steering wheel, tears mixing with the sweat on her face. Over the next few days, she moved like a ghost. She checked into a new motel under a different name, bought a burner phone, avoided main roads. Every time she looked in the rearview mirror, she expected to see headlights following. She replayed the scene at the warehouse in her head. The chanting, the circle, Hanlon's face. But she had nothing concrete. No notes, no recorder, nothing but memory. Unless she found proof, no one would believe her. Emily remembered the child's backpack. If she could trace it, maybe she'd uncover a missing persons report, something to connect Harborview and the cult. She scoured online archives, local news clippings, social media posts. Days blurred together in motel rooms lit only by laptop glow and gas station coffee. Then, finally, she found it. The backpack matched one shown in a missing child flyer from 2 years ago. The girl's name was Sophia Morales. Age 8. Last seen walking home from school. Emily's pulse spiked. She had a name, a timeline, a link. But if Sophia had been gone for 2 years, why was her backpack on that table? She drove to the Morales family's last known address. A small, weathered house sat on a quiet street, blinds drawn, yard overgrown. When she knocked, no one answered. She was about to leave when the door cracked open. A woman's tired eyes met hers. Yes. Emily hesitated. I'm looking into Sophia. I'm a reporter. The woman's face hardened, then softened with grief. Reporters came before. Police too. None of them found her. Emily showed her the photo of the backpack. This was Sophia's, wasn't it? The woman's hand trembled as she touched the image. She nodded. Where did you find this? Emily swallowed. Somewhere. I can't explain yet. But I think people in power are hiding what happened. The woman's eyes filled with tears. Then you need to run. They don't let people ask questions. That's why no one talks about the river anymore. Emily stayed in her car that night, parked near the Morales home. Around midnight, she saw something strange. A black SUV rolling slowly down the street, headlights dimmed. It stopped near the house, idled for a moment, then moved on. Her stomach dropped. It wasn't just about Sophia. It was about silencing anyone who might remember. Emily knew she had to widen her net. She reached out to an old contact from college, Jason, now working for an independent investigative outlet online. She encrypted her messages, sent only fragments of what she had. Harborview, the circle symbol, missing children. Jason's reply was immediate. Get out of that town. Now, you're digging in a graveyard. Harborview funds half the state's economy. They own the cops, the courts, even parts of the press. Emily wrote back, all the more reason to expose them. Jason's final message chilled her. Then you need to understand one thing. Once you publish, they'll come for you first. But Emily wasn't thinking about herself anymore. She was thinking about Sophia and all the other names she'd seen in missing children databases. The backpacks, the silence, and the way Hanlon had looked at her, not with hatred, but with something closer to pity, as if he already knew how her story would end. Emily and Jason agreed to meet in person, far from Harborview. They chose a highway diner 2 counties over, the kind of place where truckers came and went without asking questions. When Jason slid into the booth, his eyes scanned the room. He looked thinner, older, paranoia etched into every movement. You weren't kidding, he muttered, placing a folder on the table. I started digging into Harborview Industries. Offshore accounts, property shells, donations to state officials. It's a fortress built on dirty money. And the circle? They've been around for decades, maybe longer. Every few years, missing children, unsolved disappearances. Always near Harborview land. Emily's chest tightened. So it wasn't just Sophia. Jason shook his head. No, it's systematic. That night, Emily read through the folder. Photos of symbols carved into river stones, grainy surveillance of trucks entering warehouses at odd hours, financial ledgers tying Hanlon to payments marked only with a single word, caretaker. It was proof. Enough to blow the story wide open. But Jason was right. Once she published, they'd come for her. She decided to confront Hanlon directly, one last time. She found him at the courthouse steps, shaking hands with donors, photographers flashing around him. To the world, he was a savior, a man cleaning up the city. To her, he was the face of the circle. When their eyes met, he dismissed the crowd and approached her. You should have left town, Emily, he said quietly. Where are they? She demanded, her voice shaking. The children. What did you do with them? For the first time, his mask cracked. A flicker of something, guilt, maybe sorrow. You wouldn't believe me if I told you, he whispered. And if you print your story, you won't live to see the morning. Emily didn't flinch. She turned and walked away, clutching Jason's folder. That night, in a motel room miles from Harborview, she uploaded everything. Documents, photos, testimonies. She sent copies to Jason, to independent news sites, to activist groups. She scheduled the story to publish at dawn, no matter what. Then she waited. At 3 a.m., she heard it, the crunch of tires on gravel outside. Shadows passed by the thin curtains. She held her breath. The doorknob rattled. And then, silence. Minutes dragged like hours. Finally, headlights faded into the distance. She didn't sleep that night. By morning, the story was everywhere. Harborview exposed. The Circle and the missing children. Social media exploded. National outlets picked it up. The FBI announced an investigation. Hanlon denied everything, but cracks appeared fast. Whistleblowers stepped forward. Old cases were reopened. Families of the missing marched in front of the courthouse. And though the Circle still lurked in the shadows, their grip was broken. Emily stood on a bridge overlooking the river, the same one that had carried so many secrets. The air felt lighter, though she knew the fight wasn't over. She thought of Sophia Morales, of the backpack, of the mother who had begged her to run. Emily whispered into the wind, "I didn't run." Months later, Emily published her first book, The Vanishing Point, a reporter's journey into the Circle. It became a bestseller, praised for its courage and brutal honesty. But sometimes, at night, she swore she still saw headlights in her rearview mirror. And sometimes, when she closed her eyes, she heard the chanting again. Because some secrets never really die.